everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing a guide on how to fuse the 6-element Loki, as you see here, with all the elemental affinities, Agidyne, Bufudyne, Ziodyne, Garudyne, Kougaon, and Eigaon, and all of these are the heavy versions of these affinities. We are also going to be shoring up his weakness to fire with Null Fire, and Loki also knows Spellmaster, which reduces the SP cost of magic skills by half. Now, this is a great endgame persona to have, especially because he has all the elemental affinities, and it definitely saves on persona stock, so you don't need a persona that has fire, you don't need a persona that has ice, and etc, etc. Basically, Loki's a all-in-one. So in this guide, we're just be going through how to use the recipe generator on the Fusion calculator, and showing up weaknesses and all that sort of good stuff. I've done a guide for, link will be in the description. I'll probably be plugging that a bunch of times in this video, but definitely go check that one out. And then all the prerequisites and stuff and knowledge that you learn in that video will be carried over to here. And yeah, so this Loki is pretty powerful. I'll show you exactly how to fuse it. Again, fusion is one of those things where you can do a bunch of different stuff to get the same outcome. But I'll show you how the recipe generator works, so you can take some of the guesswork out, and it'll make it a lot easier and simpler to do. So if you enjoyed this guide and want to see more Persona Fusion guides, definitely leave a like and subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel a lot, and I truly appreciate it. We are so close to 500 subscribers right now, and I'm actually just so excited and over the moon. So thanks again, and hopefully you enjoyed the 6-element Loki. I will be doing a Odin build coming up, as well as a Sabel build. And then a Thanatos, Messiah, and Orpheus Tellus build as well. So those will be coming up soon in the Fusion guides. But today we're going to be starting off with Loki. Alright, so we're back with the Fusion calculator. I'll link it down in below. It was in my Fusion guide video, which I'll also link down below. But you can actually generate recipes for specific personas with specific skills, and it will basically actually tell you what personas you actually need to fuse in order to get the product that you want, which is essentially, you know, the ultimate persona, essentially. So caveat with this, like with anything to do with the Fusion calculator, is you must have a look at the settings and make sure you tick all these settings if you have the DLC versus if you do not have the DLC. So the reason being is because sometimes when you do have the DLC, some personas that fuse together don't actually fuse together into the persona that you think it would fuse into. It actually fuses into a DLC persona, which can definitely cause a lot of headaches and a lot of issues, especially if you spent all the money purchasing the persona materials, or just going through a bunch of persona chains to get the persona that you want, you know, fusing up, fusing down, etc. Just limit that. Just turn on the DLC if you have it, and then turn it off if you don't have it. So how the Fusion generator works is you got your target Fusion persona, so the one that you want, and then you can include ingredients. So you can include abilities of different elements. So obviously here we've got, you know, your fire, ice, blah, 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 and then you've got recovery, support skills, passive skills, and ailments. Obviously the skills per the element, the race, which is your arcana, but it doesn't really matter in terms of arcana stuff. In terms of the Fusion calculator, I don't really think it actually does, but I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Don't have to worry about race too much, but it is there if you need specifics. And the ingredient, which is basically the persona. So first steps is to find the persona you want. So in this case, we are obviously having a look at a 6-element Loki. And then as soon as you select the target, it will show you the innate skills that it will learn as soon as you fuse it. So these are the skills that it automatically has, obviously minus any inherited skills that you would inherit when you fuse. And it shows you basically the base level of the persona that the ingredient comes with, essentially. So what you want to do, in this case, we've got Agidyne, Bufudyne, Ziodyne, and Garudyne. So we want 6 elements, which means we need a dark element. So in this case, we want the strongest dark type single target move, which is Eigaon. And then we want a light element, which in case we want Kougaon. We also want Spellmaster. Now, if you have this left at no element, this is basically all the skills that the target persona can learn. So in this case, target persona can actually learn Spellmaster, which cuts your SP use in half. it will default automatically to the lowest level persona that can learn said ability. So in this case, if you know that Loki can learn Spellmaster, which obviously you can see it can because we don't have the element selected, then you must switch this to Loki. If you don't, then it will assume that you want Sibel to learn the Spellmaster in order for Loki to inherit it. So make sure that you switch this to Loki, or make sure you switch it to whatever persona is learning the ability. If the target persona can learn it, make sure the ingredient is selected for the target one. Otherwise, you'll just be, fusing a Sibel for no particular reason. And the last ability we want is Loki is actually weak to fire. So this is another thing that you need to sort of have a look at. So if we go back to the personas, you can have a look at their weaknesses. So Loki is of the Fool Arcana. You can see it is weak to fire. I went through all the weaknesses and whatnot in the Fusion guide, so definitely check that one out. So if it's weak to fire, then we want a passive skill, and we want to Null Fire. So you can also type it in. You don't have to scroll through the thing to select it as well. You can just click on it and then type it in on your keyboard, and it should come up with the nearest available. So this is pretty much the recipe, right? So it will tell you exactly what you need. So Eigaon and Kougaon can be learned by Robin Hood. So again, these are the base levels of what the persona actually comes in. So for example, if we go to Robin Hood, you can see the base level is 37. So if you look at Robin Hood, you can also see that it doesn't actually learn Kougaon or Eigaon until 41, 42, which means if you, for example, this is a DLC persona, so I'm just using this purely as an example. So with the DLC persona, you can buy them at 37 and they won't actually have any of these skills available, which means you can do one of two things. You can either fuse this persona to get the persona bonus, which, yep, you can do. In that case, you get all the XP bonuses and you don't have to grind. Or you can just buy the DLC persona or buy the specific persona that you have in stock or in your compendium, and then you can level up through Tartarus. I do have a level up and EXP guide using the Reaper or using traditional Golden Hand means. I'll link those in the description as well so you can check them out. But just that's something to keep aware of. The recipe generator only generates basically based on essentially the persona that the persona actually comes from, like the level that it actually comes from. So in this case, basically we don't really want to use Robin Hood because I'm trying to show as much as I can without any of the DLC personas. But again, if you do have DLC personas, you can just fuse a Robin Hood, get it to level 42 to learn Eigaon and Kougaon, and make it so much easier. And then all you do is just look at the fusion recipe down here, and you can see all you need to do is you need to get a Shikioji to Null Fire, which learns it at level 51. So this chain tells you the ability at which the persona that has it will learn the specific ability, and it will show you which abilities that you need to inherit. So in these square brackets is the abilities that you need to inherit from Shikioji, from the specific persona, when you make the left chain. And then you can see with Robin Hood, you want Kougaon, and obviously you want Eigaon as well, in order to inherit Michiguchi to inherit them in the right chain. And then you basically just fuse the left chain with the right chain, as you can see here. So as you can see, Loki A actually has Eigaon, so you don't really need to inherit it from Robin Hood. So you fuse Michiguchi with Loki A, and then you get Loki. So Loki A is another DLC persona. And then basically it will show you this here, this square brackets here, shows you the level up potential of Loki. It doesn't show you your end game or your end product. This skill list here shows you your end product. So in summary, you basically choose a target persona, you choose the skills that you want, and then you choose the lowest possible ingredient, which also potentially could mean the lowest cost as well. There's no cost in this generator as well. So essentially, you just want to make sure you have a shit ton of money. Again, guide down below. Sorry for all the plugs. And then, you select your ingredients that you want, and then basically you just follow the left and the right chain, and then the left chain fused with the right chain will give you this. And it'll also tell you what specific abilities you need to inherit, and what levels the specific abilities actually get learned by the specific personas. So yeah, you can see Kougaon is at 41, even though Robin Hood's at 37. So that's basically the gist of it. So in our case, basically I'm just going to be looking at, actually I had the recipe up, give me a second. So basically this is the build that we'll be looking at. So I want Chernobog, I want Uriel, and I want Shikioji. So these are the ones that I will inherit all these abilities in order to make the 6 element Loki. And as you can see, it basically shows you exactly what you need. So on the left chain, you want to fuse Chernobog with Shikioji to inherit Null Fire into Suzaku, and then to Pazuzu, which also has Eigaon. As you can see, the right chain is the Uriel with the Kougaon, the Berith, the Quetzalcoatl with Nagaraja into Suzaku. And basically you are fusing Suzaku with Pazuzu in order to get Loki with all the abilities. So obviously you want to make sure you inherit Null Fire, Eigaon, Kougaon, and that's it. So I've got the Shikioji, I leveled it up to learn Null Fire, which is required for this specific build. So yeah, just make sure that you sort of do that beforehand. You know, you can just use my fusion guide or just look at the fusion generator to see how you make the Shikioji in the first place, and then it will learn Null Fire at level 51. So basically now all we have to do is follow the fusion recipe. So all we're going to have to do is we need a Shikioji, a Chernobog, we'll also need a Samael, we'll need to fuse a Uriel, we'll need a Berith and a Nagaraja, and then finally we can fuse all those together in order to create Loki. So let's start off with the left chain first. So it's Shikioji and Chernobog. Also highly recommend that you save before all the fusions, just in case you get any fusion accidents. So as you can see, we can go Shikioji with Chernobog into Suzaku. And also another tip as well, because I already have Suzaku here, it won't actually let me fuse it. So just make sure you delete anything that you already have. However, Suzaku, for example, the Suzaku I'm really happy with. I don't want to overwrite the Suzaku. Well, you're not going to overwrite it. So the only way you can overwrite personas that you've already fused is if you register them in your compendium, essentially. So this Suzaku is already registered in my compendium. So if I make another Suzaku, it won't automatically just take the spot of this Suzaku. I will have to register the other Suzaku in order to, you know, have this one deleted, essentially. So for example, if you find yourself, you know, you're going to need Shikioji with Null Fire a lot, but you also need it to be fused into something in order to fuse it into something else, and you're worried that you're going to lose Null Fire, don't worry. As long as you register the one with Null Fire and you don't re-register it without a Null Fire, the Shikioji that you buy back will always have Null Fire. So that's another tip for you guys. So we'll fuse together the Chernobog with Shikioji into Suzaku. And we want to make sure that we inherit Null Fire. And it doesn't really matter what else we inherit because we're not really going for anything else. Cool, so now we have Suzaku. We're going to be fusing this with Samael in order to get Pazuzu. So Samael is of the Death Arcana.
Is this acceptable?
As you can see, Samael has, Pazuzu has Eigaon, which is another thing that we need, and we need to make sure that we inherit Null Fire, which is basically the reason why we are doing this. So now that we have Pazuzu, so make sure as well when you're going through the chains that you don't accidentally override the skills that they will naturally learn through level up with the skills that you want. So obviously I just made sure that we have Eigaon and Null Fire. So now that's the left chain done, and now we're just going to do the right chain. So we require a Uriel. So the Uriel will be specifically for Kougaon. And because we already inherited the Null Fire and the Eigaon from the other side or the left chain, it doesn't really matter what we inherit here. Cool, and now that we have the Uriel, we will require a Berith to fuse into Quetzalcoatl. and then we'll require a Nagaraja with Quetzalcoatl to fuse back into Suzaku. So I'll just do that really quickly.
Choose the personas you.
This one is somewhat beneath.
So again, we want to make sure with this one we inherit Kougaon. Then everything else doesn't really matter. Then Quetzalcoatl with Nagaraja into Suzaku. And then again, make sure that you inherit the Kougaon ability. Cool. And then the final is Pazuzu with Suzaku. And as you can see, we're getting Loki. So Loki has Agidyne, Bufudyne, Ziodyne, and Garudyne. And what do we want? We want Kougaon, Eigaon, and Null Fire. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. So we got Megidola, which we don't want, so we're going to forget it. Single target boost, which we don't want, so we're going to forget it. Soul Shift, same thing, we don't want, so we're going to forget it. As you can see, Spellmaster, we won't learn it until level 76, but just rank it up. You know, just go through Tartarus basically, and then find some gold shadows, rank it up, and then replace Angelic Grace with Spellmaster, and there you have it. You have a 6-element Loki with basically all the affinities, except for the physical ones, obviously. And that's how you do it, really, and that's how you basically build all out personas. Essentially, using that recipe generator helps out a ton, and I do highly recommend to save beforehand. Yeah, just ensure that when you go through the left and right chains fusions, if you do have an accident, you can just reset, and you won't waste a shit ton of money. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And now I'll just go through quickly why this persona is very good to have. Why having Loki is really good is because he has the 6 elemental affinity. So it basically means that you can pretty much hit every single weakness in Tartarus without actually having to think much about it. So as you can see, I can just use Loki and get Bufudyne. Obviously I don't have Spellmaster at the moment. However, if I did have Spellmaster, essentially it means that it cuts all my Dyne level skills in half. So essentially, instead of using 15 SP, every single one of the Dyne skills actually uses 7. So it is actually super useful, and it's something that, yeah, you definitely really need to sort of consider getting. So another good thing about having Loki is instead of having a bunch of different personas with different elements, it definitely cuts down your persona stock by a lot, which means you can actually just make more personas that of what you actually really want to make. In which case it definitely saves up a lot of space as well. It definitely helps with fusion as well, because some fusions, you require a lot of personas to be fused together, left and right chains, etc. And in which case it will be very useful to have less personas in that instance, and then you can just make more personas in the mid to late game that you want. So obviously you can use different skills for the specific build. You don't have to do the build that I have. The 6 elements is pretty much a guarantee, and the Null Fire as well. And then Spellmaster is good and icing on the cake. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for the Loki build. If you're following along, that's exactly how I would build it. But if you do have the DLC, it is a bit more complicated. So definitely make sure that you go through the recipe generator, tick all the DLCs, and make sure that you have exactly what you need. And also, play around with the ingredients. Obviously, some skills, can be learned by a lot of other people. Like if you want Drain Fire, for example, then chuck in Drain Fire and see what it comes up with. But in this case, I think Null Fire is okay for me. But yeah, the recipe generator is a very powerful tool. You don't have to play around with stuff that that just doesn't really make sense, or something that you're not really wanting to sort of waste money and waste time with playing around with fusions and whatnot. Just use the fusion calculator, use the fusion recipe. It's definitely a good time. So yeah, once again, if you enjoyed the video, definitely leave a like and subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel a lot. I will be doing more of these fusion guides. Coming up next would be the god of, the father of the god of thunder, actually, the almighty Odin. Basically a super super powerful elect boss. So thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you in the next guide.